This is the BBC.
Hello. Today, the challenge of reporting in China, daily difficulties, and our correspondent is followed, harassed and detained in Xinjiang. Brazil and its enemy, the mosquito, which delivered Zika virus and now has people queuing for vaccinations against yellow fever. Albania, for years an isolated, grim communist state, but we discover a curious and decaying film archive of the time. And we meet a social media star in Sweden, an Iranian who wants to keep other migrants out. The Iraqi city of Mosul was captured by ISIS in June 2014, and it was there that Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi proclaimed the creation of his caliphate. The ancient mosque where he made the announcement was later destroyed, blown up by the militants, say the Iraqi army, along with much of the city. Dissenting citizens were tortured, publicly beheaded, women controlled and abused, a reign of terror. Only last year did the government regain control, and Shaima Khalil has been seeing how Iraqi's second city is adjusting to life after ISIS.
Mosul is about an hour and a half's drive from the northern city of Erbil. An hour and a half if you're lucky with the checkpoints, that is. We sailed through some of them, but are stopped, questioned, and asked for permits that we didn't even know existed at others. Iraqi and Shia flags flutter by the roadside, a clear sign of who's in charge of Mosul now. As we approach the city, I notice signs on lampposts. Our culture, our pride, declares one. Another says, Mosul, the city of peaceful coexistence. A painfully ironic message, given the horrors that have taken place here. Pedestrians hurry along. Men and women are rushing through the streets. Shops and restaurants are open, and street vendors are calling out for their fresh produce. Today, it's a lively, congested city, but the battle to liberate Mosul came at a great cost. Rubble competes with cars, minibuses, and armored vehicles for space on the road. As I pick my way between the wreckage and barbed wire in downtown eastern Mosul, a young woman whizzes by me at the wheel of her car, something you'd never have seen when Islamic State were in charge. I make my way through what's left of the entrance to Mosul University, one of the oldest and most prestigious in the region. It's exam week, and a group of young men and women are huddled together, looking through their notes. Heavy fighting between Iraqi government forces and IS militants has left many of the university's buildings dotted with pockmarks, others half-shattered. The once renowned library is burnt beyond recognition. We're collecting books because, it's all been destroyed. All the books, the maps, and the manuscripts. 22-year-old Farah Khalid tells me. Farah is studying to be a pharmacist. Her sister Rafal is studying medicine. Like many students in Mosul, they're now 3 years behind. We just stayed at home, Rafal tells me of the years under IS. We used to read books, listen to music, watch TV, or try to improve our English. I even tried to improve my cooking, Rafal laughs. That didn't work. They notice my puzzled expression. Listening to music? Reading novels? Both were strictly prohibited by IS, and enough to get you imprisoned, lashed, or even killed. We were scared that they would knock on our door and find all this stuff, Farah says. But we used to hide things. Anywhere we could. In the ground, in an old clay oven, in our pillows, anywhere. Farah is wearing a black fitted jacket, a black headscarf, and a pencil skirt, while Rafal's floral headscarf complements her olive green top. Outfits they wouldn't have dreamed of leaving the house in during IS's time. Of course not. We had to wear this all-black thing, Farah said, gesturing to her whole body. It was so uncomfortable. The sisters joke and laugh and bicker. They wave to their male classmates and roll their eyes at other young men who make silly comments as we walk around the university grounds. It's all very normal, I think to myself. Except that any of this could have cost them their lives just a few months ago. Reminders of the suffering that the people and their city had to endure are everywhere. But there are also signs of a determination to move on and reclaim the city. When my kids ask me what I did for Mosul after Daesh or IS were defeated, I want to tell them I was able to rebuild our library. I want to do something for my city, Farah tells me. It's not just the sights that are changing in Mosul, but the sounds too. Amin Muqdad is a violinist who had to flee when IS found out he was playing music at home. We meet at the ruins of the Nabi Yunus Mosque on a hilltop overlooking Mosul, another building destroyed in the fighting. Amin takes out his violin and plays a somber piece with flurries of angry notes, a piece he composed himself. "Fear," he says when I ask him what it's called. "They came to my house and interrogated me for 3 hours," he says. "They told me I was possessed by the devil. They took my instruments away and said they'd be coming back for me." Amin hid in his uncle's house before escaping to Baghdad. Now that he's able to come back, he tells me he wants to start the city's first orchestra. "First, we want to start a music academy. We want to create a community for young people." I point to the rubble all around us. Mosul needs many things: water, electricity, infrastructure. But does it need music now? "Mosul needs beauty," he replies. "It needs its soul back, and that's what I want to do." Amin tells me he'll defend his city in the only way he knows how, with an army of musicians.
Shaima Khalil. Xinjiang is China's largest province, home to both the Turkic-speaking, mainly Muslim Uyghur minority and Han Chinese. It's where Beijing says it's fighting a people's war on terror against Islamic extremism. But human rights groups say the Uyghur have long been discriminated against and had their culture suppressed. Access to the region by foreign media is tightly controlled, but John Sudworth did try and get the local perspective.
For any foreign reporter, covering China has never been easy. But in the far western province of Xinjiang, it's become all but impossible. In our 5 days there, we were followed relentlessly, tailed for hundreds of miles across desert highways. We were detained at one police station for 3.5 hours, let go only after agreeing to delete our recordings. Late at night, the police knocked on the doors of our hotel rooms and demanded to see passports and press credentials. We were monitored so closely that the few people we were able to exchange words with in shops or in the streets were all, without fail, approached immediately afterwards by our minders, making almost any attempt to gather real testimony simply too risky for those involved. Many fellow journalists in China report similar experiences. Others have decided, understandably, that the costs in time and money of making the journey to Xinjiang are not worth the sizable risk of returning empty-handed. Precisely China's intention, one can only assume. And so what, you might ask? There are, after all, plenty of other countries that deny press freedom, although respected international comparisons rank China as among the most repressive. But China matters because it's now the world's second, and soon likely to be the first, largest economy. What happens here, and the ability of audiences around the world to understand it, is of crucial and growing importance. Meanwhile, China is busy spreading its own influence, spending billions in the past few years to build a global news empire. State media, under the direct control of the Communist Party, have been opening bureaus in dozens of countries and striking deals to have Beijing's propaganda, in the form of regular advertorials, inserted into mainstream titles like the Washington Post and the Daily Telegraph. All the while, back in China, international news organizations complain about long delays to accreditation and visas. Their content here is censored and blocked. The BBC's global news channel regularly goes to black, and Facebook and Twitter are banned, despite being used aggressively by Chinese state media to spread their message overseas. China's justification for all this is of the classic pot-meet-kettle kind, accusing the foreign press of being obsessed with stories that portray its communist political system in a bad light. In fact, even some Western commentators, often those familiar with the dazzling city skylines of Beijing and Shanghai, wonder aloud about foreign media bias and its focus not on China's remarkable economic achievements but on the downsides: the environmental degradation, the massive debt bubble, the absence of the rule of law, and the many human rights abuses. My answer is a simple one. It's not bias. It's the opposite. Equal treatment. Even democratic governments find themselves lamenting the barrage of negativity, sniping, scepticism and ridicule that comes their way. But however partisan, sensationalist and imperfect, the Western media can hold power to account in a way that state media never can. Sections of the Western press are at least as critical of Donald Trump as they are of communist China. There are few places on the planet more in need of scrutiny right now than Xinjiang, where China says it is battling against the threat of Islamist terrorism. It's a place where the Uyghurs, a mainly Muslim ethnic